Hey there, welcome back to my channel. So let's continue with our series where we left earlier. Alright, so now we are going to create the cart using the real data. Right, so in this case, if you go inside this order service and go inside this schema and the cart.ts file, this file already we have been created while we have integrated result. So if you open this file, so here we have just created one cart, right? It's a kind of table, right? And we have our customer ID. This is extremely necessary, right? And we have created another table that is called cart line items, where we are maintaining ID. This is necessary, right? And we are maintaining product ID because while we're trying to view the product details, then definitely all the product details are not stored here, right? Those product details, where exactly it is stored? It is stored in our catalog database, right? In the catalog service. So where you can directly get that product details from the catalog service, the way we have called our catalog microservice on the time of creating the cart. The same way we can get the details from here as well as, right? So that's why we are storing this product ID right here. And the cart ID, you can see this cart ID is this one, right? So where we are maintaining some kind of relation, you can see reference to our cart ID on delete cascade. So what on delete cascade it is? So while we are going to delete this cart, right, it is automatically delete all the items from belongings from here in the cart line items as well as, right? So this is what exactly this means, right? And we are saying this is not null. Definitely while you are maintaining a reference, right, then you need to set it up as a not null while you are trying to perform this kind of operations, right? And this is our item name. This is going to be product name, right? And this is the variant. It's maybe small, medium, big, whatever the variant sizes are coming from our product details from our catalog service. And this is the quantity, the numbers of the quantity that is we are going to buy for that cart line items, right? And this is the price and created, updated. This is pretty normal, right? Then you can see both the tables are created, but somewhere we need to maintain the relation. So we need to tell explicitly in the drizzle, hey, drizzle, this cart items exactly belongs to the cart, right? So this is the thing we need to do. Like, you know, one cart can have a multiple items, right? So it's called one-to-many relationship, right? So this thing's going to happen in the two ways. So first of all, we need to maintain the relations of the one-to-many. So this is what we have declared right here, and you can see the cart relations. This is we need to declare right here. So at least we can patch it out all the cart items. Efficiently. That's why we are just creating this one. And in the relations, we are maintaining this says this is the cards exactly. This card is coming from here, this one, and we said the cards can have a many. What many? Many is a kind of many line items. All right, card can have a many line items. So that's why we just maintain right here. This many is many card line items. This one, right? In the reverse way, also we need to maintain that relation. You need to say like line item relations, and relations we are saying like card line items. This one, right? One line items can have one card, right? One line items can have one card. So this says like card one is a card. This is coming from again from here, and we are saying like field. Which field exactly we just try to bind it, right? So in this case, card line item card ID. You can see this is the card ID exactly, and reference to what? This field exactly. It's a reference to the cards.id. So this ID exactly reference from here. So I think right now it is clear, right? So this is the way we are creating the relations between the two tables, right? And I know it's a little bit different to understand, just like into SQL. But as much as you are putting your hands on the practice, or maybe just to go to the code, then you can get the clear picture. And I would highly suggest to go to Drizzle ORM's the official website. There are tons of examples. They just put it in different database, right? So this is the easiest one maybe you can find, or maybe some more examples you can find it there helpful for you, right? So I'm just trying my best to make you understand in an easy way, right? Perfect. So I think our card is perfectly ready as of now, right? So we can hook it up and we can insert all this data correctly. But the tricky part is how we can insert all this item along with the card. So that is the tricky part, right? So in this case, we need to dig deeper to our repository also. Let's go to our repository. We will add some code right there to make it simpler, right? All right, so while it comes to create our card items, right, and card and line items, then definitely we need to add some code right here in this card repository. And you can see for this creating the card repository, we are using some kind of repository type, right? This has already been here in this types file, right? So what we can do, maybe we can use, or maybe we can create one generic repository type instead of this card repository, and we can pass this generic ID right here as a kind of T, or maybe whatever you just like to pass it right there. That particular generic type we can return right here as well as. So what kind of expectation we can have per functions, that is we can fulfill here. So this is one way. And another way, the similar way we are using right here, the similar way, we can just create per repository types. Per, let's say per card is a card dedicated to card, and maybe we can create per one per order dedicated to order. So in this case, if you are going to dedicate it the same way, like for the card and order, then you will be having more flexibility in terms of you will get more code change, right? As of now, as we are focusing on the solid principle, then definitely we are not going to use the generic types, right? So instead of the similar way, the card repository type, we're going to use the singular responsibility, where we are going to create one dedicated repository type for the card and one for order repository. This similar way we are going to do, right? So let's try to delete this one from here. Inside this type and repository type, we are going to delete it from here. Card repository is giving error. That's perfectly fine. Let's try to remove this one as well as. So what we are going to do here, let's try to declare our types here, right? Especially for our card repository. Perfect. So let me add some code quickly. Then we're going to discuss on that, right? Perfect. So let's try to understand what we did here. So we have created one card repository type, right? And that type can have multiple functions. It's going to be create the card, find, update, delete, clear card data, all right? So technically what we need to do here, if we need to compile this card repository, if you're using this card repository type, then definitely we need to implement all these functions. So let's try to do that, right? So I'm going to clean it up from here, right? And I'll be adding some code quickly. Then we can discuss it together, right? Let's try to understand line by line what we did here, right? So you and I together, we are going to walk you through all the codes. So here you can see we have just created one function that is called the create card, and it is accepting two parameters. One is our customer ID, right? And the another one is called the card line items, right? Where we have deconstructed all these parameters right here, right? And the idea behind this, first of all, we're going to create our card, right? So to creating a card, only one item is going to be needed. That's called our customer ID, right? So rest of all, like serial number and the created ad and updated ad, it's going to be automatically going to insert from our schema, right? And you can see once we are creating the card, then we're returning everything, right? And you can see right after returning, we have one more piece of code that is called onConflict do update. So while we are just to try to inserting the same item, right, with the same customer ID, because customer ID is unique. So if you go to cards, then you might have seen right here. So this customer ID exactly we are marking as unique, right? So if this is unique, then definitely you cannot keep the two customer ID in the same card, right? So idea behind this, one customer can have only one card, right? then that cart can have multiple line items, right? So this is the idea. And now you can see if that customer ID is already exists, then definitely we are saying on conflict, right? Just to try to update. And what we are going to update? Only updated at. That means you are adding the item to the cart, then cart will be update its updated at, right? And once we are creating the cart, right? The cart by using customer ID, then definitely it will return the ID. So it doesn't matter, it may be on conflict or it may be a kind of new entry, right? Both the cases it will going to return this ID, right? And we will check it out. If the ID is present right there, then insert that particular ID as well as, right? And create the cart line items, right? So while we are just creating cart line items, then we're adding our cart ID. That ID is coming from here, and product ID, item names, price, quantity, and all the variants we are adding right here. And finally, we're returning this ID here, right? And for the similar thing we are doing for our find card, right? So here also we are accepting our ID as a number, right? And we are just like returning the promise as a card, right? And you can see we are just querying the data for find first, right? So you can, if you use the find many or find first, you can use. So in our case, we are only interested to find out only one data, all right? So the find first is going to give one object, and find many is going to, this is quite meaningful, right? So it's a kind of array or one kind of object, right? So where our card is equal to customer ID is ID, right? So we are just trying to find it out from the cards. If there's a kind of customer ID is ID, then provide the line items as well as. So this with line items, it's saying like, as an example, we are doing some preload data, right? So while we are fetching some query, then all the relations, all the foreign key items also, it's going to preload for you. So this is the way it's going to do, right? And eventually we are going to get one card items. Can you see? Like, and we are going to get the card plus all the line items as well as, right? It's a kind of array, right? And line number 56, we are returning it. And for update card, you can see for update card, we are not going to update any product information because this is not a kind of responsibility of the order service. So what we are doing only we are updating the quantity. So that means you have added this card. Let's say you have added one t-shirt, right? And now you are trying to increase the quantity. Let's say I need two t-shirt, right? So in this case, you are just updating the quantity. And the similar way we did, like, db update the card, what we are updating, the card line items, right? And setting the quantity is quantity, and where equal the card line items dot id equal to id. That particular id, whatever the card line items, we are just to try to update that id we need to provide here. And finally, we're returning all this data, right? And that line items, you can see, finally we're returning the card line items, and that card line items we are returning here as well as, right? And for delete, this is very simple. We're just to try to delete the card line items, right? So let's say you have added maybe two t-shirt, like one t-shirt, one shorts or something. In that case, as an example, you don't want the shorts, only you just need the t-shirt only. Then you just to try to delete that particular card line item. Then here you need to provide that line item ID. So you can see and delete card line items where equal card line items dot id is id, right? So this is the way we are deleting that particular line item. And all right, so you might have thinking why this clear card data is needed. So this clear card data is going to be helpful for us while we are shifting our card items, right, to our order, right? So there's maybe one more or two more functions we are going to add while we're going to work on our creating the order. But as a summary, this clear card data are going to delete all the card items where card ID will be provided ID. So as we have already added this, while we are going to delete the card, then all the card items also, it will go away because of this cascade, right? So I think we are pretty much clear here, and this card repository is complete. So only one thing we need to do, we need to export this card repository. So let's try to do that together. Export const card repository type, our card repository. All right, card repository will be what? Card repository will be our card repository type. All right. And we need to return all the functions. As an example, create card. Then we are going to say it's already saying like we have not implemented the rest of all. So let's try to add one by one. Find card, then update card, then we will say delete card, and clear card data, right? Perfect. So now you can see it's complying, right? Perfect. So now let's go to our card service. So if you go here inside the service to card service, and here we need to change a couple of things. First of all, this part is incorrect, right? Because earlier we have used this card repository from our types inside the types directory. And now we are going to use this from our card repository, right? So this is going to be repository. And inside repository, we can say card repository. Now this result. But one problem is there. This is going to be changed because this create doesn't exist anymore, right? So instead of that, what we need to do, we need to say like create card. And the create card is accepting two parameters, right? So first parameter will be our customer ID, right? And second parameter will be our line items, right? So in this case, we don't have customer ID, right? And what we are doing, we are assigning some kind of the hard-coded customer ID from our front end, right? So that is customer ID. You can see here we are accepting that one. In this case, you can go ahead and you can use the ZWT token just like we did for our previous microservices. You can apply that, but how we can do that? If you go here in the card routes, so here right after this particular endpoint, as an example, we are creating the card, then which user is creating the card, here we need to determine, right? So here this middleware will be go, right? As an example, auth middleware will go here, right? Or auth middleware. As an example, I'm gonna write very simple middleware here. So we can say const middleware, right? And here we will be accepting our request. So these are the things we are going to accept it from here. Let's try to grab this piece of code from here and add it right there. And we will say return next, or maybe directly we can say next. We don't need to return it here, right? Next. Right? So once you are going to call this endpoint, then this middleware is going to call, right? So wherever this authentication is going to be needed, then you can utilize right here. Let's say in the card, in the paths, or delete, or whatever, right? Or if you need all the routes has to be handled that way, they need to use the middleware, then you can directly use router. Let's say router.use this auth middleware. Right, it's the auth middleware. Then definitely rest of all the routes has to be go through the authentication pattern, right? Then once it is authorized, then it's gonna work. So in this case, you can add your ZWT logic right here. So and you can say like and we'll say if is not right. So this is your and then say return and so then you can say here and say return just and you can write your end of this series, definitely we are going to introduce some kind of mechanism of for intercommunication mechanism, also like authentication between the microservices, and for the public microservices also, all right? So where we are exposing the endpoints to public, those are the authentication and authorization also we are going to introduce, right? So similar, just like Okta or something like that, all right? So this is a kind of surprise for you. So I'm going to definitely show you how we are doing these things for enterprise application, all right? So a big application, how it is just like protecting their microservices, right, from similar kind of internal or external threats. Perfect. So this is not a kind of topic at all right now. So I'm just going to show you like how we can grab the user. So in this case, you can grab the user, pass to the request, and you can, from the request, you can grab the authenticated user ID, and you can utilize similarly just like here, right? So, but in our case, what we can do, as of now, we are not going to make it complicated. And then input, like we have our customer ID, we can use it there. And the second parameter will be our line items. So let's try to construct the line items. So first parameter will be our product ID. So let me add all these things quickly. Perfect. So now it is complying, right? So we are not going to return this product from here. All right, let's try to delete these things from here. And instead of this one, we can directly say return. All right. Now, perfect. So now it's going to work, right? So we are just creating our card here, right? All right. So here in the get card, let's try to add some code. So instead of this input, we will say ID, and this is going to be our number. because this getCard.id, we can get it from our path parameter, right? So we can grab it from there. So in this case, let's try to find card and we will say ID, right? Now you can see we are getting the data and we are returning it back. So what we can do here, we can check it out if the data is not there, right? If data is not there, then we can say throw not new not found error, not found error. So card not found. Perfect. So to edit card, let's try to add some code as well as. So in this input, we can say edit card input, request input. That is already we have been added in our DTO file. And instead of this update, we will say update card, and we will be simply provide this ID. So let's try to provide this input dot ID and input dot quantity, right? And this is fine, right? And then what we can do, or finally the delete card. So instead of this delete card, this ID input will be again the ID, and this is going to be our number, and this is going to be delete card and by ID. All right, perfect. So now we have covered everything, right? Now let's go our routes, right? Card routes. So let's verify this card route, right? So here in the post card, this is correct. And get the card, what we can do, get the card request body. So here maybe we can get it customer ID. So technically this is going to be comes from our auth user first from ZWT, right? So yeah, this is a kind of homework for you, like where you can directly edit, right? And the pets, what we need to do, we need to pets is definitely we need to get the authorized user, but what we are going to patch. So in this case, we need to provide one path parameter. This is going to be our ID, right? So ID, right? And here also we need to grab that particular ID, right? So let's try to do that. So in this case, const card ID. This is card line item ID. It's ID line item ID will be our request dot params dot ID, right? And this line item ID will be go here. So what we can do, we can provide just like ID will be line item ID, and quantity will be our requested body dot qty, right? So this is what we need to do. So why exactly it's giving the error? String is not assignable to number. So yeah, perfect. So definitely we need to just cast it like this. Cool. So this is our path, and delete also gonna be same way. All right, this similar way we can just like grab this one and add it here, and but this time it's not going to be I think this is perfect. This is going to be our card. Here we can say ID, and this is line ID, let's say line item ID, right? And this is also line item ID. This is going to be meaningful, all right? So then we can get to know like what exactly we're grabbing right there, right? And this is the similar thing, right? Because both the cases only we are interested to delete this this whole not the whole card, only the particular line item ID only, right? So here also line item ID, here also line item ID, and this line item ID we can just pass it here, delete card, right? And again, this is going to be cast to number. This is gonna work perfect. So now I think we have covered everything, right? So this is the time where we are going to test it out if it all is working correctly, right? So let's try to do so. Now we are going to test it out, right? So in this case, what we need to do first of all, let's try to run the migrations for our order service, right? So here inside this order service, and if you wish to run the migrations, then definitely we have added some kind of scripts also here. And you can see we are going to generate this one, then we are going to maybe we can do the push also just for our development environment. Then finally we can run the migrations. So let's try to do all those stuff. So right now we need to get into our order service, cd order service, right? And let's check it out if we have any dependencies are there, right? So dependencies are already installed, right? db. So in this case, I'm going to run yarn db generate, right? So db is generated, and then yarn db migrate, right? So it seems like my connection is refused. So let's try to run my Docker Compose from here. So let's do that one. I'm gonna go back to the root directory here, and I need to get into our db directory, right? So cd db, right? Then Docker Compose upd, right? So it is created right now, and yes, now again go back to our root directory and cd to our order service, and here yarn db migrate. Perfect. So everything is cool. So what we need to do, we need to side by side run the our catalog service as well, right? So another window I'm just opening from here terminal, right? By clicking this one, right? Splitting up, and let's try to get back to our catalog service. All right, catalog service, and here we are going to install all the dependencies. Nothing is pending. Then yarn start. Yeah, it was dev, I think. Yeah. So it seems like it is started, right? 9001. And here also, let's try to run yarn dev, right? And it is running on 9002, right? Let's go to our Postman. So here in the Postman, you can see like this is our order service. This is running on 9002, and this is my customer ID, and the product ID is 1. So in this case, let's try to create this card, right? And can you see we are getting 200, right? So it is not returning anything, but it's returning the 2. This is going to be like our card ID, right? And if you go to click on the get card, right? So it seems like we have our card ID, we got it, and the customer ID is 1. That is fine perfectly. And you can see we have our card, right? Can you see? Our ID is 2, customer ID is 1, and these are all line items, right? So variants, then we don't care about the variant as of now. Maybe in later stage we can take care of that one. But it's a really good sign. All right, so let's try to update our card, right? Here we can provide the card line item ID 1, and quantity will be 3. Let's try to call this one. Can you see? Now it is the quantity is 3, right? And if you go here again to go get card, just to try to call, just keep eye on this quantity, then it's going to be changed. Now can you see it's changed, right? So let's try to delete that particular line item, right? So if you are going to delete this line item here, and we need to provide the number that is called line item number, and if you see here, line item number is 1, right? That is, we need to provide it here from the delete card. Set it, right? Seems like we are having some trouble, right? So what exactly is going on? So let's try to figure out 9002, and what it says, not as number, right? So it seems like we have some trouble to delete that data. All right, so let's try to debug it, right? If you go here in the card routes, and if you see this delete ID, exactly line item ID, right? Delete card line item ID. So the way of debugging is just to try to print it out, what exactly we are passing it right here. Console.log line item ID, right? And delete card is getting called, then what it is going to be called? Delete card, right? Repository delete card. This is also fine. Let's go here and delete card. And if we come down to the function, then what exactly it says? It says card line items.id is ID, right? Somehow we are not providing that ID correctly. So let's try to log it also here. .log console.log and propose ID will be ID. Okay, so let's try to run it once again. So here we are requesting this delete card ID. It's fine. Send again. Right, now you can see propose ID is not a number, right? So it seems like we are sending something else, right? And it is undefined. And why it is coming, right? Why it is not coming? So if you go to cart routes, then you can see we have delete line item ID. Okay, can you see? There's a kind of mistake, right? So here we are just giving a line item ID is I is capital, but here is small. That's why actually this line item ID is undefined, right? And this is not a number at all. So let's try to tweak it. So this kind of mistakes are happening often, like, you know, sometimes while we're not paying attention on the typing that particular thing, right? So that's why. And in my case, often it's happening. I'm so sorry for that. All right, so let's try to restart our server once again. And I'm gonna run it from here. Let's try to call. This time 100% has to be called, right? Perfect. So can you see it's returning true, right? And if you see here, its proposed ID is 1. It's going through. Now if we go here in the get card, let's try to call it, then line item has to be empty. Cool, it's empty. Then again, just to try to create a card once again, and this time also product ID 1, let's say quantity 1, call it and get it, get card. Perfect. So it is fairly working, all right? Then this is the way exactly we can just create the card by calling body microservice from order microservice to product microservice. Right, then in the upcoming episode, what we are going to do, because this part already we have covered, right? The synchronized communication we have covered. And one more thing maybe we can do, you can see like while we are managing our card, while we are updating our card by calling this function in terms of update card, right? Can you see we are just we're calling updating our quantity, right? But we are not calling the product microservice for available of the stock. So this is a kind of homework for you. Maybe I can show you in another episode, or maybe next episode I'm gonna show you how we can do that. But as a homework, you can just achieve that one the similar way we have just created our product details. So right before updating your quantity, make sure we have the sufficient stock in the catalog service for the particular product, right? If it is so, right, then update the card. Otherwise, do nothing, right? Then in the next episode, we are going to purely working on the Kafka. So where we are going to show what are the different ways we can use Kafka. Maybe installing in your local machine, or maybe running the Docker image, or maybe using some kind of famous you can say web services. So all the use cases we are going to cover, right? So then sit tightly. In the next episode, we are going to purely working on our message broker, where we will implement our Kafka. All right, then see you in a bit. Bye-bye.